What's up guys, and welcome to another video. Today is the day that the next PvP season launches, and with it, with the start of Season 3, ArenaNet have thrown out a fairly sizable patch. Once again, no, this isn't a quarterly update. This is an example of one of those other updates that are continuing to surprise me in their size. There's a little bit to touch on all three formats of the game, so let's just jump straight in. Now, I will say, unlisted, as in ArenaNet didn't put it on their official notes, there was a bit of a change to the UI for those of you who use a lot of shared inventory slots. I know this is a bit of a boring thing, but as you can see there, they now appear on their own row. I know a lot of people have wanted to be able to move that one row around and like choose exactly where that stuff is. That's not available yet, but it's a start, I guess, at least, and it's a nice thing for those who wanted to separate the shared slots from the rest of their inventory, and you now get to do that. That was unlisted. All right, so moving on. I'll just go in the order that ArenaNet talked to us about these things, and as always, to save us being here all day, I'll just pick out the best things or the most important ones in my opinion, starting off with Adventures. Adventures got a lot of quality of life recently. You know, some of these big issues that just kind of, I wouldn't say killed the concept, but really held the concept back from the launch of Heart of Thorns, have been getting their improvements. Don't forget, this is one of those things where it's exciting, not just because people who are still into Adventures of this expansion get to play them, but this is exciting because these things are all going forward into their future expansions and the future adventures that come out, and they're really going to come out, you know, properly polished and golden when we get new ones thrown in. So this is a big change, and this is the fact that adventure leaderboards now show millisecond precision on player entries. Well, what does that mean? It should be fairly obvious. It means that now you can more precisely see why this guy is number one versus this guy who's number two. See, what you'd get with some of, especially as people get better and better and better at these things, what you'd get is, and especially in the lifetime section, a bunch of people all occupying with apparently the same time, the same speed, those top slots, right? You could have 5 players in theory, all who beat bugs in the branches at the exact same moment. And it's like, well, who won? How do we get to decide that? It wasn't as competitive as it could be. Well, now it will say, okay, this guy did it in 12.1 seconds, but you only did it in 12.5 seconds. So he beat you by this amount of milliseconds, and now you know why he's in first and you're in second, the next guy's in third, and so on and so on and so on. That's really good. That's excellent. As I say, that's going to be good for all the future adventures that come out as well. And don't forget as well, just a little bit of a reminder to you guys, adventures don't have to be about you going for the lifetime score, especially now that they're in the daily rotation. I've been playing a lot more adventures than I had since basically the expansion came out. But also, remember that it will compare you against people on your friends list and in your guilds quite readily, quite apparently. And I certainly have had that situation where someone I know has had the exact same time as me on one of these leaderboards. And guess what? Now I can rub it in their face because I got like 1 millisecond faster. Which is good. It's probably just going to lead more people to worrying about lag, right? Well, we'll see. Next big change as well is the 64-bit client is now no longer considered in beta. Hooray! ArenaNet have got a bit of a thing. Isn't their Mac client still considered in beta? They've had a bit of a thing where several of their branches of various things over the years have come out in beta, and then they forgot to have them leave beta. Would you believe that the Hall of Monuments calculator for Guild Wars 1 players going to Guild Wars 2 is still also considered in beta? And it kind of made me raise my eyebrows when the 64-bit client came out, but only in beta. Does this mean that it's actually had any changes now that it's the full release? I don't know. I doubt it. I mean, I think there were a couple of small problems with it when it first came out that were fixed within that week, and it's been awesome, right? Those who may only just be looking at this thing, what happened when Heart of Thorns came out was because it had so much focus on these big maps with lots of complicated moving parts, lots of players, especially Dragon Stand, you'd get people hard crashing out, like their client would just break. And this was because essentially the client thought that your PC was out of memory because of the way it was dealing with things. I know I'm being very technical there, but they brought out the 64-bit client to fix this issue, and it did. So I don't know whether it's had any changes, but it's now considered the official release. And importantly, you don't have to separately download it to try it out anymore. What happens is when you click Guild Wars 2 to play, it will do a check on your system to see if you are actually capable of running the 64-bit client, whether that will be a help to you. And if it is, then you'll run that version just automatically, and you don't even have to be any the wiser for your average user. So this might, if you suddenly start playing Guild Wars 2 now, and you're getting all of these crashes go away, you know why. It's because of this update. So then there were a lot of things in the patch notes. I won't go through every single one, but things like the Hero's Choice chests returning, where essentially ArenaNet are refining many of the changes they made to the Heart of Thorns content in the Spring Quarterly update. You know, their second take on the expansion. So the Hero's Choice chests came in. They were your big rewards at the end of some of the metas, and then there was some problem with them that got removed quite quickly. Well, they're back now, and there have been lots of small changes across the board to like balance out the rewards. I wouldn't say nerf the rewards. It's not like, oh, they did a patch to reduce the grind and now the grind's back this patch. It was nothing major, but it was like there were weird imbalances where you'd get tons of Leyline Sparks, the map currency for Tangled Depth, and it didn't quite seem to match in Auric Basin, for example. So things have been leveled out and averaged, and it's just another pass of polish over what they did in the Spring Quarterly update. There are a lot of notes about that, but you guys get the gist, the general idea. Moving on, they have an ominous patch note here, which is very cool, very exciting. Reports of banditry have increased in Kryta. Oh, okay. Doesn't this remind you guys, those long-term players of the franchise, back in Guild Wars 1 days, we once upon a time had ominous patch notes like this talking about reports of strange things happening in Kryta. And that was the beginning of the war in Kryta, which was essentially Guild Wars 1's living world. And that's where it all started for them. So last patch we had, you know, these weird leyline events that were suddenly starting to roll out, and they were kind of curious. Well, it looks like this is the format that ArenaNet are going with. This is great. I'm already starting to see the perks of the legendary weapon team having been disbanded and now providing little bits of content every patch that goes through. This is cool. Now, there have been changes. There are white mantle badges and all sorts of things to talk about. I will probably cover that in another video, though, guys, because the patch itself is just big enough. But yes, this once again appeared. Reports of banditry have increased in Kryta. I'm already seeing the joy of this kind of regular mini content going in each time. Moving swiftly on, before people get too disappointed, there were some changes to legendary weapon collections. Those of you who have been going for Chuka and Chumpawat, and yeah, I get it. I don't know how to say that. It's got some exotic, weird way of saying Chuka and Chumpawat. Chuka and Chumpawat. Something like that. Anyway, there was a change to this where essentially through this collection, if you guys don't know, it will let you go into a tiger den eventually, where you can get these unique items, these tigers that will cling to your back. And as far as I'm aware, don't take a back slot item for you. So it's just like this extra cool cosmetic thing you can get. A bit like the people going for the Colossus precursor. They can get this chromatic ooze that they can drink at any time to change their character, even without wielding the hammer. Well, this is one of those really cool special things about the Chuka and Chumpawat collection. But if you got to that point in your collection, you could actually just invite a friend to enter the tiger den, and they could bring one of these tigers out without them to put any effort in whatsoever. And that's a bit of a shame. It takes away the specialness for those who really work to earn it. ArenaNet identified this, and I believe this change has essentially fixed that. You can still bring your friends into the den after this patch, and they can try out with these tigers, but they won't be able to leave with the tigers anymore. The tigers will stay in the den, and if you want it for your character, you kind of have to work for it. And everyone who didn't work for it but got it has had that revoked now, and that was a fairly big change. There was another legendary weapon collection change, but it wasn't too interesting. Next up, another big batch. I won't go into all the specifics, but there were general changes to guild halls again, and like guild upgrades, putting things into queues. There were a couple of crashes that I never even knew existed that ArenaNet fixed. Most notably, for those that don't know, with decorating, what you can do is delete decorations using the decoration removing tool while you're in decorating mode. But also there is a specific permission that you can give certain ranks in your guild, that if people have this permission, they can click a button in the guild UI, the guild panel, that will delete all decorations across the entire hall. So you've got to be very careful about who has that permission. Well, with this patch, ArenaNet added another button like that will delete all decorations, but it's all arena decorations specifically, which is a really positive change, and I'll explain why. Because if you're a guild like mine, where we have a lot of regular decorations all over the place, but also like to play around with a lot of different arena configurations, then you're kind of in this horrible scenario where you have to manually delete everything in your arena because you can't press that big button because it'll delete everything everywhere, which isn't what you want. So this new button there helps that. Whether this also came with some secret little changes to the amount of legal play spaces in the arenas that, you know, matches the Gilded Hollow to the Lost Precipice, as I desperately want, I seriously doubt. All right, moving on. Let's talk about profession balance. There wasn't much, all right? Don't forget, the main profession balance changes are coming with the quarterly updates. It's just that they're making short refinements to address things for the PvP seasons primarily, but there have been some other changes. So really not much. Like a nice one for Mesmer's. Mesmer's suffered a couple of nerfs, but a nice one is at least the wells have had their visual effects restored after the LOD changes that came in the previous patch. But for Elementalist, I did want to point one thing out. Obviously, I'm an LE player. they nerfed a really terrible fire trait, which is the Conjurer trait. This is the trait that improves the amount of charges Conjure Weapon gets, and also means if you pick up or summon a Conjure Weapon, it gives a fire aura. I actually did a stream recently where I played specifically with this trait to combo with warriors, or berserkers specifically, who have a trait called King of Fires. So those that don't know, this Conjurer trait gives a lot of fire auras, and warriors have a trait that allows them to explode fire auras for pretty good burning damage. So I tried to do like this cool thing in the Golem lab where we tested out how far you could push this, and even under the best scenarios, it's just pretty much a terrible idea, and the trait was nerfed even harder now. I really don't understand why on this specific one. They say they're just standardizing it, normalizing the aura duration, which I suppose is fair, but it really doesn't make this trait any better in any way. I guess I'm just in the camp now of believing ArenaNet knows this trait is terrible, and they're just waiting for the day where they overhaul Conjure Weapons in general, rework them, and then they've got like this placeholder trait slot to eventually make into something functional. Maybe sometime they'll find the time to do that. There were a couple of other changes as well for Ellie. For example, Flash Freeze, which is the Tempest shout that gives everyone Frost Aura, which reduces incoming damage. This had its cooldown increased. You might think, well, that's really arbitrary. Why did they do that? But they did that probably because of World versus World. A big thing in World versus World at the moment is large groups of players stacking these damage reduction things, which is a little bit on the high end right now. So they're doing their shaving to bring that down, that functionality down. The most interesting profession balance change, though, wasn't an Ellie thing. It wasn't the Mesmer thing to me. It was actually Ranger. And there weren't many, but there was a big change to the way that bristlebacks work, all right? And not necessarily that it's suddenly bad or it functions differently, but there were a huge amount of changes, right? Listen to this. I found this fascinating. Bristleback fixed a bug that caused the bristleback skill to fire more projectiles than intended, and we've reduced the overall projectiles to 10. We fixed a bug that caused 33% of the projectiles to deal 33% less damage than intended. We've increased all the projectile damage by 10%. The missiles are now fired directly at the target instead of at slight angles in the target's direction. The missile launch point has been normalized. We fixed a bug that caused some projectiles to fail if the creature was in an incline. Just a huge amount of changes. So to those rangers out there, to those rangers using bristlebacks, of which many are, that thing should function very differently now, and hopefully quite well. Also in the realm of balance, ArenaNet listed this out somewhere completely different, but in the realm of balance, there is 2 changes to amulets for PvP people. Now, the Mercenary Amulet, very popular amulet, has been completely removed. Whether this will actually result in a wide shift on the builds we see played, I seriously doubt, but it has been removed, and Vipers, which you previously had to pay for, is now free. And if you had paid for it before, which most of us had, you get your cash back. So as of this patch, you guys should log in. As long as you'd bought that before, you'll have a bit more money. So that's nice. And then, so that kind of segues us, I guess, into areas outside of PvE or just general game changes. For World vs. World, there were a slew of changes. Not a crazy amount. It's hard for me because I haven't been playing very much World vs. World, so it's hard to assess how important they are. To me, it looks like one of the bigger changes is this, that the dragon, the turtle, and the centaur banners, none of those, plus Iron Guards, none of them can be built at camps anymore. That seems pretty important, but I don't know. And I'm asking you guys, if anyone who World vs. Worlds a lot is in the comments right now, can you drop that in the comments? Can you inform me and everyone else, like, how important that is or whether that was a really big change? But that was World vs. World, generally had some slight tweaks. And then SPVP. PvP's got some bigger changes just by the fact that the new season is coming in. This is Season 3. We saw big changes from Season 1 and Season 2. That continues here. Now, as of the recording of this actual video, the season hasn't begun. I think it is going to begin, I'm looking at the clock right now, in about 2 hours. So by the time you watch the video, I think the season will have just happened. And you guys can squeeze in a couple of games to get your early daily there. But I have been PvPing quite a lot recently, actually. Quite a lot. I've made 150 wins on the Warrior just between Season 2 and Season 3 here. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm thinking of going into it on Dragon Hunter, which I've just started out to play. But so what have they changed? Well, there is now automatic division placement. You see this in most games that have some kind of a league system. We've got that in Guild Wars 2 now. So what does that mean? Well, so the leagues, those totally out of the loop, what happens is when the season begins, you can win. If you keep winning, you go up through the divisions. Sorry, so you go from Amber to Emerald, is it? To then Sapphire to Ruby, Diamond, and so on. Well, now what happens is at the start of the season, ArenaNet looks at where you managed to climb to last season, and they'll start you higher immediately. So, for example, last season I got Legendary, and whether I'm truly a Legendary player or not, I'm probably better than your average guy. that will be playing around in Amber at the start of the next season. So why put me in Amber at all? So that's the idea. They're going to start the Legendary and the Diamond players. Let me just get the exact quote here. They're going to be starting in Sapphire. Then the Ruby and Sapphire players of last season are going to be starting in Emerald. And then if last season you were in Emerald or Amber, then you just start in Amber again. And that's the way it works. And so that should create more balanced battles straight away from the start. So it's not like the people in Legendary last season start in Legendary again immediately. But this does raise some interesting questions. You can see the perks of it, hopefully. This does raise some interesting questions. First of all, you're going to be thinking, well, what about the rewards, WP? And that's a good question, because half of the fun, honestly, of climbing through these leagues at the moment is as you climb through the divisions and the tiers, you get gold and you get cool stuff. So what? Now I got Legendary last season, so I'm just going to miss the opportunity to earn all the rewards from climbing up again? How does that work? Well, you do get all the rewards. I will be fully compensated for all that stuff I skipped. It's just you have to play a single game to get it. So everybody should be happy about this. And in fact, it's going to be quite cool. What this means is in 2 hours when the season starts and I play my first game, after my first win, I'm going to get a huge reward. I'm going to get reward for all the tiers of all the divisions that came before where ArenaNet's automatically placed me. And that's going to feel pretty awesome. It's just going to flood me with a ton of gold and a ton of cool stuff for crafting my Legendary backpack. So I like that. I think that's going to be really nice. And that's a bit of incentive for people who did really well on a previous season to stick about and try the next one as well, at least for one game. And then hopefully, if Guild Wars 2 is a fun game to play, you'll play that one game and it'll be like crack. And it'll get you in the door again. You'll go again and you'll go again and you'll go again. So that should be nice. There was a further dev post about this, though, because those more savvy of you might still notice a problem. And that is the Legendary Backpack achievements. The achievements are kind of heavily tied into climbing through these divisions. And even if they retroactively just dump all these rewards at you, does that necessarily increase your achievements as well? Well, so a dev had this to say on Reddit. He says, "Hey folks, on the PvP end of things, I know that there's been a bit of confusion with regard to the patch notes about the division placement system and Ascension meta achievement progress. I've responded to a couple of threads in the forums already, but I just wanted to jump in here too, let you guys know that crossing divisions as a result of the new season placement system will properly progress the division Ascension achievements in addition to automatically distributing all rewards that you would get for crossing those divisions normally. Again, you'll get proper division crossing progress on your meta achievements if you begin in Emerald or Sapphire at the start of the season. Sorry for any confusion." So the devs did think about it. They sorted it out, and there shouldn't be any problems. Fingers crossed. Who knows? We'll see what happens in 2 hours. And not only this, but matchmaking's changed again. All right, so I'll quote the devs verbatim here. But again, in Season 1, they had a certain way of doing matchmaking, certain way of giving people pips and taking pips away and so on. They refined that and changed a lot when it came to Season 2. They're changing it again for Season 3. We're getting a third system. And I'll just quote them directly here so that you guys know why they've done it. They said this in the patch notes. "Season 2 matchmaking was changed from Season 1 ranked and unranked matchmaking to help ensure league positions correlated more with skill instead of being simply based on hours played. These changes saw a multitude of improvements for Season 2, but unfortunately, they also spread out win rates further than we would have liked as matches became a bit too uneven. We've created a new matchmaker for Season 3 that will strike a balance between the two previous seasons, accomplishing the same goals of accuracy from Season 2, but doing so with the evenness of matches that players experienced in Season 1. So they're going for a best of both worlds thing here. And who knows, could this be the golden matchmaking system? Will we see this for Season 4 and 5 and 6 and so on? Who knows, but I'll probably play a fair amount and I'll let you guys know how it feels as we go through. Then there were also some changes for PvP for spectating. I like seeing these spectated changes. I just want it to be more accessible for people. I'd love it if you could spectate just, you know, average ranked games. That would be great for your normal player. Just like we had in GW1 where you could pull up the observe menu and go at it. But yeah, it's pretty nice. So far, it's still just sort of a hot join thing for your average player, though. Oh, and then the other cool change as well. They added a little bit to the UI panel. You guys should see this on screen right now. There's new statistics for the PvP leagues. This is nice. This is really nice. Basic stats. It tells you the total games you've played in the season. It's going to tell you your total wins and your highest win streak. Oof. I have played a fair few games in the past where I've cared a lot about my highest win streak, and it's going to, now that that number is visible to me, it's going to be very sad when I lose my streaks, I can tell you that much. And so that's pretty much it, guys. That's pretty much the general changes. There were blackline things. There's a new set of blackline weapons. These are the Cavalier weapons. They should have appeared in the footage at some point throughout this video. There are 6 new hair colors. That's not new hair styles. That's new hair colors. and they added an NPC as well in the Black Lion headquarters that lets you preview the Total Makeover Kit stuff, even if you don't own a Total Makeover Kit. To be honest, I couldn't care less about this change. I stockpile those. I couldn't make a good-looking character with a Total Makeover Kit if I had 5-6 hours to faff about with it. I'm just that blind to it. But those who really care and use a lot of those kits and you know, really fawn over these new hair colors and stuff, you can try them out even if you don't have one of those items just by looking in there. And it's obvious why ArenaNet's added this NPC. In the end, it's gonna drive more sales of makeover kits, right? So that makes sense. Probably the coolest thing is, for a little while, the Cook's outfit is back on the Black Lion store. And you guys might think, the Cook's outfit? Well, the Cook's outfit was one of the first town clothes outfit style things that they ever put in the game. And it's a very interesting one because when you are a cook, you can actually summon an ally as some of these outfits. Oh, sorry, wait. If you buy the Cook's outfit, as long as you get the frying pan toy with it, which I think you should. The frying pan toy lets you use costume ball stuff, but interestingly, this lets you summon an ally who is a sous chef. And the cool thing about the sous chef, this has appeared in one of my videos a long time ago, is the sous chef will actually participate in regular combat with you. That's right, this is pay to win right here, guys. The sous chef dies in like a lick of a hit from the weakest enemies, doesn't scale as far as I'm aware, or it might scale, but it's just so squishy and awful and has such low vitality. It basically accomplishes nothing. But if it can get up to an enemy and it does a couple of attacks, it will do a few stacks of bleeding. Hell yeah, increase your DPS today, guys, for only 900 gems, the Cook's outfit. So yeah, there you go, guys. That's basically the patch. See me tomorrow to find out what's happening in Krytia, where there has been increased bandit activity. If I look at my world map right now, I can see tons of guildies all running around the Krytan regions. Is this going to be as good, more or less, than we saw with the Leyline events? We shall see. But I'll give you all the details on that tomorrow, guys. Very excited. Thanks very much for watching. Let me know what you thought about the patch. And as always, have a great evening. I'll see you next time. Simple tools. Although not as old a race as the dwarves, they were a far more active one, spending their time on constant invention, experimentation, and the dissection of magic itself. According to the records of the eldest archivists of their race, there were at least 6 cities as large and grand as Ratasum in the Asura-dominated lands beneath the surface, though none survived into the modern age. While other races insist that the legends of such massive capitals as Korra Sum are far-fetched,